Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and in this video, I'll be doing a rules refresher for Anachrony. In this video, I'm going to go over the Variable Anomalies module, which comes from the Fractures of Time expansion. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I'm ready to talk a little bit about variable anomalies. So this module comes in the Fractures of Time expansion, but you can play it with or without the rest of the Fractures of Time stuff. This one can be mixed and matched anywhere. So let's talk about anomalies, standard anomalies for a minute. So that's the stack here. These are all the standard anomalies, and all of these tiles are exactly the same. So they're not really a building type, but you'll recall that if you gain normally 3 paradoxes, then you have to take an anomaly, and it gums up some of your building spots. So all of these tiles, they sit on your building area of your path board, and when you gain it, you immediately can remove 1 warp tile from the timeline. So you take any 1 warp tile that's yours, you remove it as soon as you gain it, and then as long as it's on your player board at the end of the game, it's worth -3 victory points. So you're going to lose some points for having it. Plus, it's blocking some of your building spots, so that's not good. So if you want to get rid of it, you have to send any worker here. You pay 2 standard resources or 1 neutronium, and you spend 2 water. And then at the end of the round during the cleanup phase, you can remove the anomaly, but you also lose the worker. It kills the worker, so not great. But like I said, these are all identical. So what this module does is it introduces variable anomalies. So I've got that stack here. So these are all different, and you treat these like buildings. So when you place these in here, whenever you would move this stack of buildings like this to make a secondary pile, you would do the same with the anomalies because they're all different. They're variable. And so gaining the anomaly works in the same way. If you get your 3 paradoxes, then you've got to gain an anomaly. But at that point, things start to change. So, there's going to be multiple here. You can choose, just like you would choose a building, you choose of the face-up anomalies that are visible, which one you want to take. So let's say we take this one. There's a few of these in the stack. This one's pretty, I guess, similar to the standard one where when you gain this, you immediately remove 1 warp tile from the timeline, and it's worth -4 victory points at the end of the game. And that's it. You can see there's no worker slot on this one, so we'll talk about how to get rid of these in just a minute. But -4 victory points is obviously worse than -3. So there you go. But it guarantees you can remove a warp tile. And I keep stressing that point because let's take a look at this one next. This one is saying if the current era is before the impact, you can remove 1 warp tile. So I've got my marker here just simulating as if it were this era. It doesn't matter, because you roll the paradox die 1 era at a time. So let's say we were on this one. I have the most warp tiles, so I roll. I get an anomaly. I take this. It doesn't matter that the era that I rolled for was before the impact. This is the current era, and that is after the impact. So I would not get to remove a warp tile. So that kind of stinks. And then this one has an ongoing passive ability. So as long as I've got this on my player board, every time I spend an energy core, I must also spend 1 water. If I don't have the water, I can't spend the energy cores. So that is detrimental. So this one's worth -3 victory points. So you can see that the penalty is a little more harsh. So it's not going to penalize you as much on the victory points. And I won't go through all of them, but I do want to just take a look at a couple more to show you some differences. So this one here, this one says if the current era is after the impact, you can remove 1 warp tile. So in this scenario, if I take this anomaly, then I can remove any 1 warp tile. It doesn't have to be removed from after the impact. It's just saying if the current era is after the impact, you can remove 1 warp tile from the timeline. This one is worth -5 victory points. That's pretty high, but it actually gives you a new ability. So you can place a genius here to remove a warp tile from the timeline. That is a super cool action. Now, when you do that, you're not using a power plant, you're not moving your focus marker, so you're not time traveling. You don't get to move up the time travel track, but you can get a lot of victory points off of that timeline and not have to pay stuff back by using this tile. So that's really nice. And then this will be, I think, the last example that I want to show you here. You can see on the left side here, it says nothing at all about warp tiles. So no matter when you grab it, you cannot retrieve a warp tile from the timeline. They're all going to stay there. But this one gives you an action as well. You must use a scientist, but whenever you send a scientist here, you can take the research action, but you must also gain a paradox. And so the ones that give you some more interesting actions to take, those tend to be, higher penalties on the victory point side, where some of these that are penalizing you continuously at least are not going to cost you as many victory points at the end of the game. But ideally, you're probably not going to want to have any of these when the game comes to an end. So how do we get rid of these things? Because normally you would place a worker, just on the anomaly tile itself and then pay the cost, and that would get rid of the anomaly. But that is not the case with these. So at the beginning of the game, every player gets one of these. So this is not a building. It sits next to your player board. It is considered to be on your player board, but again, it is not a building. So you can place a worker here and then pay 2 resources or 1 neutronium and spend 1 water. Now you notice from the standard anomalies, it is 1 water less. So it doesn't cost you quite as much water as the standard ones used to remove. But 2 standard resources or a neutronium, and then spend a water, and then you immediately remove the anomaly from your player mat. And so it goes away immediately. When it does, it is out of the game. So just put it off to the side, put it face down. In the very unlikely event that you go through this whole stack and still need more anomalies, you can then take everybody's removed anomalies, shuffle them up, and start over with a new stack. But they're supposed to be out of the game. But that is the immediate thing that happens. You don't get that worker back from here until the cleanup phase, and really don't get him back because you lose the worker again. The worker still is lost to the time rift. So you lose the worker, but that means you can only remove 1 anomaly every era. So you don't have the ability to clean up a bunch of them at once. So that is a change that you need to be aware of. So again, every player gets one of these. It's not a building. It's next to your player board. Treat it as if it's on your player board, but not a building. And one other note that I forgot to mention when I was first recording this, so I've just got this still frame up. If you look in the bottom right, you can see my fingers pointing to one of the anomaly tiles in this still frame. Some of the anomalies, as I mentioned, allow you to put workers on them as if they're buildings. When you use the anomaly remover and you immediately remove an anomaly, if the anomaly that you're removing has a worker on it, that worker is retrieved just as they would be during the cleanup phase. So look at the anomaly that you're removing and the worker type and see if they should be retrieved to the tired column or to the motivated column, and then place them there immediately. Remove the anomaly tile, from the game, and then the worker that is on the anomaly remover remains on the anomaly remover until the cleanup phase, and then they're lost to the time rift at that point. But I wanted to make sure I got that note in there, so there you go. Oh, and because this is not a building, I keep harping on that, any abilities in the game that allow you to retrieve a worker from a building, this does not count. You can't retrieve them from there. So, it's really going to be that 1 anomaly per era is going to be the max that you can remove normally. Now, a couple other notes. If you are playing multiplayer, then at the beginning of the game, you normally have some of these Endgame Condition cards. They look like this on the back, and you shuffle them up, and I think you pick 5 of them, if I remember correctly. And these are things that you can score for at the end of the game. So if you use Variable Anomalies, you can shuffle this one in. So this one says at the end of the game, whoever has the most anomalies on their player board gets 3 victory points. So that's an interesting tactic. So you can take that one, shuffle it in, and use it if you want to. If you're playing against the Chronobot or the Chronosis, so if you're playing solo, Chronobot doesn't use these, and Chronosis has its own deck of these, so you won't need it for solo mode, just for multiplayer. All right, now something else to point out is when you're going through the paradox phase, you roll that paradox die, and if you gain an anomaly, you stop rolling no matter how many eras are left, but the other people can keep going. So it's possible that more than one person will have to gain an anomaly in the same paradox phase. What you do is you wait until everybody is done rolling, until you get through the whole timeline, and then everyone who needs to gain an anomaly does so in turn order. So you start with the first player, and they pick from the 2 stacks available. So they may take this one. That changes what's available. Then it goes to the second player who needs to take an anomaly, and they get to choose which one they want, and so on. So that's a little bit of a change. It doesn't necessarily happen that often, but that's the way the rules state to do it. A couple other quick things to point out. If you're on the B side of the board with the Path of Harmony, and you've got this special ability, so if you get 3 paradox tokens, you can take an anomaly or lose any one of your buildings. That still applies. Nothing changes there. So if you lose a building, you don't have to gain one of these variable anomalies. That works exactly the same. And additionally, if you're playing the Path of Salvation, if you've got the B side of this board, your evacuation criteria here is to have 2 anomalies. That's the same. You need to have 2 anomalies. You just need the variable ones instead of the standard ones, but nothing changes there. All right, and briefly here, let's go over what you need to know to play solo with the Variable Anomalies module. So you can play this with either the Chronobot or the Chronosis. It's going to work the same way. So when you play with solo, you will need this anomaly removal tile, but the bot will not. The bot does not get one. So when the bot removes an anomaly, it's going to be through the normal means, like this space here, or this space here, or if there happen to be any of these variable tiles that allow it to remove an anomaly. So it does not need this removal tile. The bot's just going to remove it through the normal methods. So when the bot takes an anomaly, when it needs to take one, it's going to treat it like buildings, but in reverse. So, if we were going to build, say, a power plant, this one's worth 3 victory points, this one's worth 4, it would take the one that's worth more victory points. When selecting a variable anomaly, the first thing it's going to look at is either of these tiles going to let the bot remove a warp tile from the timeline? If so, it's going to prioritize that one. If they will both let it remove a warp tile, or if neither will let the bot remove a warp tile, then it'll prioritize by victory points. So this one's -5, this one's -4. It's going to take the one that's going to penalize it less. It'll take the -4. And then when it removes an anomaly, so let's say it has these two. This one's worth -6. You can't quite see that. This one is worth -6. This one's worth -5. If it takes this action here, it's going to remove the one that is doing the most victory point damage to it, the -6. It'll remove it, and just like if you removed one, it would be out of the game, and then it's gone. So that is how that works with the solo modes. And all of these unique effects on here, like every time you spend a energy core, you need to spend 1 water. The bots ignore all of those ongoing effects. None of that matters. So that is what you need to know for the Variable Anomalies module. And if you'd like to see it in action, I'm doing a solo playthrough that's going to include it. So that is out today. I'll put a link at the end of this video. And if you want more Anachrony content, you're in luck, because I'm going to be putting out rules refresher videos along with solo playthroughs to demonstrate the various modules roughly every other week for the next few months until I get through all of the modules. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like here. If there's anything that I said here that was confusing, or if I missed something, or if something just didn't make sense, leave a comment and let's talk about it, and maybe I can do something to help you out. But that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching Table for One, and I will see you next time.